You're only as good as your last trade. It's really not personal. Not everybody has the same level of comfort. We're living off of loving ramen noodles because we were broke. And all markets are collective expression of human behavior using their wallets.
Is there a way that we can help to make this last longer? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Aging Whealthily Podcast. I am your host, Sean. Bridget is not here with us today. She had to be at another engagement. However, I'm here in the studio today with Mr. Chris Michelsen. Now, Chris is the founder, also the
Managing partner
of Strategic Family Capital.
That's right.
He's also a certified exit planning advisor, a CEPA, and a former New York Stock Exchange floor trader. Chris is a very interesting person, and we are going to dive into this episode with Chris. So, Chris, before we get too deep into anything, I want you to talk a little bit about yourself.
So, I think the most important thing people should know about me is I'm a family man. All right? Family is the most important thing in my world. Everything I do revolves around my wife, my two little kids, and providing a wonderful world for them to enjoy.
Great. Now, I want you to take us back. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up not terribly far from here. I was born in Queens and grew up on Candlewood Lake in Danbury, Connecticut. So not too far from where we are right now.
All right. And what did your family teach you about money and success?
So candidly, not a whole lot.
Really?
Right? No, I come from very modest means. I mean, my parents were wonderful, and I never was without, but son of a fireman and a school teacher. So growing up, always had the entrepreneurial drive within me. You know, as we were chatting even before we started rolling.
Yes.
Had the itch to be able to produce from single-digit age, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had a whole lot of hobbies that required a little bit of funding, so I was the kid going around knocking on doors, shoveling snow, babysitting when I could, walking dogs, cutting grass. Started working for the city of Danbury at the town park at a very young age, and just anything I could do to be able to produce. That was always in my heart.
So you always had the entrepreneurial spirit.
I absolutely did.
Now, was there a moment growing up, maybe a conversation with a parent, a grandparent, or something that you witnessed that shaped how you think about wealth and family?
So I would say that within my family, it was on my mother's side. I had her cousins were very successful. So here I was growing up in Connecticut in what we thought of the country, and going into New York City, spending time at their home on Park Avenue. Two very successful attorneys who had not only the beautiful home in the city, but a beautiful summer home up in Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. And they opened my eyes to a different lifestyle, which I was unaccustomed to, that I absolutely appreciated and got to enjoy as a kid.
Wow.
So that was incredibly impactful.
So you got to see a different side of life.
Absolutely.
Right. Kind of I bet that probably sparked your hustler's ambition too, huh?
It just showed me that there's a lot more than what I had been exposed to.
Right. That's beautiful. Now, who is Chris Michelsen when you're not working?
When I'm not working, pretty relaxed individual, candidly. I mean, at this stage, I spend my time very active young children who, if I'm not doing business, taking them to their activities and living vicariously through their experiences, coaching soccer, cheering my daughter on with her gymnastics, cheering my son on with his martial arts. Yes. So it all revolves around that. I mean, my time is best spent enjoying them.
Right. So you said coaching soccer.
This is all new.
Really?
Absolutely. My little guy just started playing this past fall, and I immediately got involved.
Nice.
You know, growing up, I did play soccer, but the opportunity to be able to share that experience with him at this stage. And Sean, you have to understand, this is kindergarten soccer. So
Yeah.
it's more like herding cats than real strategy.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet it is. You know, those are those precious moments that every parent wants to or should enjoy, right? Should want to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And there are also those are those precious moments that being in business, being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, small business owner, if you don't know how to manage your business, how to sometimes pull away, being a business owner can rob you of a lot of those moments.
Absolutely. It's a balancing act.
It's
It's a constant balancing act. But one of the beauties of having your own business is you get to decide your schedule. And I'm on a lot of the time. But when I'm not and I'm focused on the kids, I'm there. I'm present. I'm not. They're getting 100% of my attention when I'm involved.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
again, one of the beauties is in this day and age, I have the opportunity to conduct business from home daily.
Yes.
And they get to observe that we can be successful, run a business from our home.
Right.
Which is something growing up I could not have ever imagined. I thought that was out of this world type of an idea.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that because when I think back on my childhood, and I'm, you know, probably a little older than you are, but you never work from home was a strange thing.
Absolutely.
The closest thing I remember seeing to working from home was my grandmother. She had her own business. She was a seamstress.
Mm-hmm.
And inside of our building was where she had a space where she rented out from the landlord, and that's where she did her sewing. And, you know, but it was right downstairs from where we lived. Well, that was the closest thing I ever seen to, you know, at that time, I remember seeing it working from home. Like, you know, the whole idea of having, you know, home office and stuff is brand new.
So you're jogging my memory with that comment, right? Mm-hmm. So in addition to my cousins, same side of the family on my mother's side, my grandfather's sister, my great aunt, she was a practicing woman's doctor in Brooklyn, New York. And she had her office downstairs. They had both sides of a 2-family home, and the ground floor on one side was her medical practice. And I can tell you stories off the podcast of kids misbehaving in a doctor's office on the holidays.
Oh,
because that's how it was.
Yes.
So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
You know, and I think back, like a lot of times you really think about it, like a lot of stuff was probably like working from home, you know, being home office. I think maybe it was frowned upon. Like everybody had an office, everybody went out, everybody left home to go to work.
That's correct.
You know, the pandemic changed a lot of that.
Absolutely.
I think it brought a lot of people in the office or out of the office into home,
Mm-hmm.
really realizing a lot more tech was built around being able to work from anywhere remotely.
Absolutely.
So now you see a lot more remote jobs. And is it a good thing? I don't know. I know that it worked for a while, but I was happy to get, you know, I needed to get out of the house.
I can appreciate that as well.
Because it didn't, you know, it kind of outlived its usefulness for me. You know, there's something to say about getting up and getting dressed and going out as a business owner. Now, if I'm working, you know, I you know, maybe I'm doing accounting,
Mm-hmm.
bookkeeping, you know, maybe that's different. But with my line of work is done out, not at home. But it was good when it lasted.
Absolutely.
It really was. So, how does your family actually shape the work that you do?
Well, in a lot of different ways. They shape it because they keep me hungry, right? Always wanting to be able to do more, travel more, provide more, enjoy more, make sure we have freedom, not only now, but well into the future. And simultaneously, there's something about not only how I want to be for myself, but for the example that I'm setting for them of what they could achieve for themselves. Mm-hmm. So not only is it every day of I'm doing this for me, I'm really doing this to set an example for the young people and the adults that I know they're going to grow to become for themselves.
Yes.
And already having those conversations, what would you want to do if you had a business? And my daughter comes back, she's like, am I too young to run a summer camp? I'm like, I don't know. Well, how would you approach that? And we sat down and she started modeling out, without even realizing she was doing it, a little bit of a business plan on activities she'd want to have for the kids, where she'd want to do it, who she'd want to bring into the fold, and just ideas like that already in her mind. This is the creativity again. Being a business owner, you're not doing a task, you're creating something.
Yes.
You're creating some type of a service, some type of a good that you're able to then provide to others.
Absolutely. And instilling that mindset and those values early.
Absolutely.
It's priceless. And not just saying it, but being the example, showing the way. Because I remember coming up, it was often, you were told, to do certain things. And, I remember a lot of the people who were in my life weren't doing the things that they were instructing me to do.
Sure.
You didn't see it. Fortunately, I did have some examples of, I had uncles. I had, my parents owned a couple businesses, different businesses throughout my childhood. My grandmother, who was a seamstress, owned her own business. So I had examples. I've seen it. And now that I think back and as we converse, I'm thinking back and saying, wow, maybe that's what ignited that spark in me. That I was seeing people around me who were, entrepreneurs and out making a way and doing their own businesses. And maybe that was the spark, because I always had it. It lived in me. So you started on the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange in 1999.
I did. It was actually summer of 98. And it was through family friends of someone very close to me at that point. So it was after my original freshman year of college, I had the opportunity to come in for an internship through, at that point, a private broker, referred to as a $2 broker. So made the decision, and again, very fortunate to have parents who always gave me plenty of runway. Moved into the East Village, was living with my, at that point, high school sweetheart. We were living off of love and ramen noodles because we were broke. But it was that exposure that really lit a fire in me that I still have burning strong in me today. So after that first summer, when I went back to school in the fall, I was disenchanted with school. And I knew I wanted to go into that business. So I circled back to all of the good contacts that I had made over the course of that summer, and not a job that exists today, but I was running trading tickets on the floor of the stock exchange and was fortunate to get hired by a little company called Payne Weber.
Well, yeah, the small company, right? Very small, yeah.
Right. And shortly after getting hired by them, Payne Weber was purchased by Swiss Bank UBS, and spent well over 20 years at Swiss Bank UBS.
Wow. So
learned to trade stock on the floor, and at that point in time, it was a very exciting place to be. There were over 5,000 of us, and I have, God bless my father, there was a picture when the Dow broke through 10,000 the first time. Picture of Long Island newspaper Newsday, and I was in the picture, and I have that on the wall in my office at home. And just such an amazing experience. But again, I knew that was not going to be forever. So much change in the technology, in the way trading was done. It went from a centralized marketplace to an electronic environment. So I was fortunate to make my way onto an institutional derivatives trading desk also for UBS. Wow. So I left the floor and I landed onto a different trading desk. And this was in Stamford, Connecticut. And that was also a phenomenal experience.
Yes. I'm always intrigued by that whole experience of being down on the trading floor and seeing all the people. I was like, wow, that looks just looks so exciting.
It was a lot of adrenaline, a lot of energy. And again, from above, it's almost like you're watching ants working. They're all running all these different directions, but it's absolutely 100% organized because everybody has their specific task that they're focused on, and they're doing it as quickly and as accurately as they possibly can because, again, we're moving significant amount of money around in form of stock.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes. It's just super exciting. We had to pick your brain about it when we're off this, when we're done.
Gladly.
Now, so you run around, you're one of those guys in the jacket. And 13 years is a long time to walk away from something.
So the timeline went a little bit like this. 2004 is when I made the change off of the New York Stock Exchange onto the trading desk at UBS.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is a different environment, large as well. So the trading floor at UBS was somewhat world famous because it was the largest trading floor that existed. It was this massive piece of real estate in Stamford, Connecticut. It was 2 football fields in size.
Wow.
Wide open, not a single column on the floor. The architecture was rather spectacular. But it was there that I learned a whole new aspect around trading and investing and speculating and hedging and using different instruments to be able to express an opinion around an investment.
Mm-hmm.
So that, again, just added another skill set to my overall experience.
Wow. So when you were trading, did you ever think about the actual families whose futures were tied to those numbers?
Candidly, that's not how the institutional world operated.
Mm-hmm.
Because absolutely, you're right? Behind all of these pension funds, private banks, hedge funds, there are individual families that are certainly affected by the performance of all of these different investments. Yet, in the moment, you're focused on the task at hand, which is best price, direction of the market, overall environment, how things are behaving. And there's an old adage in the institutional trading environment that you're only as good as your last trade. It's really not personal. It's very much just focused on the marketplace.
Really? Okay. Now, what did that transition cost you?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I would say it only had a positive impact. There was no pullback in terms of a cost. If anything, it was pushing myself away from what I was familiar with to be able to learn to do something else. So it was all accretive. There was nothing I would say, if anything, just time, right? Trading really involves the hours of the market.
Mm-hmm.
And markets are open from 9:30 to 4. Obviously, there's strategy beforehand, and there's reconciliation at the end of the day. But throughout the day, you're really focused on what you're doing for your clientele and how you're doing it as well as you can for them.
Okay. I just find it, I love talking to people who are so grounded in the understanding of their field, right? And when I listen to you talk, I can hear the wisdom in your speak.
It's kind of you.
Yeah, truthfully, because there are people who they can come in, you can tell, right? If somebody has achieved a certain level of understanding, they have a bit of practice, they're polished in their career, and I hear the polish in you as you speak about what you do, and but you're young.
I like to think so.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, I mean, usually when you think about wealth managers and financial people, you usually think of like somebody who's older, and but you talk with the understanding and wisdom of somebody who's much older, right? And when I look at you, you're a very young looking man. So I just enjoy talking to people who have that.
No, I appreciate that. And I will say I grew up in the business, right? When you come into a business, I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And there were points in time, this actually speaks to the question you asked about what the cost was, because there were issues that I had not having that identity with my traditional same age peers,
Mm-hmm.
right? I didn't have the college experience. I went to college later while I was working. Didn't have the dormitory experience. So here I was, late teens, early 20s, and didn't have the frat parties, all of the things that most guys at that stage in my life had. And I was feeling a little bit unaware, a little bit of an identity crisis at that point, but still incredibly comfortable with where I was professionally.
Right.
And again, I spent more than half my life in the business. So it's really just helped shape who I am now.
It helped, right, exactly. And everything has a cost.
Absolutely.
Right. And, in order to be able to be where you are now, there had to be sacrifices to be made, right? And I wouldn't even say sacrifices because they weren't. There were investments.
Sure.
It was investments in today. Chris Michelsen today.
That's right.
That young man invested in who you are now. And I was actually having a conversation with my wife the other day, and we were talking because in my business and what I do, you run across a lot of people. One of the things I do is helping to mentor home care agency owners, and in trying to help people, right, and even what I do that's unpaid and free, and trying to help people and give people guidance, it's one of the most difficult things you can do sometimes is to get people to understand that they actually need it.
Sure.
And then a lot of times, there's something in the mindset of people that they know they need it, but don't want to admit it. And I had a conversation with someone, and, and just by the response that she did to the question and, the exchange, you know that the person is struggling in their business. And, then they tell, so we went to the conversation and could tell by the response that they were having some difficulty in the business. Did not want to admit it, but was very upset that I mentioned it.
Clearly you touched on something.
Exactly. And you can when you know an industry, like for instance, you're coming here. If I come in here and I try to talk finance with you, well, quite naturally, you're going to pick up in a millisecond that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or he has limited understanding. Same difference if someone comes to me and they're talking about something in my industry, I know. But and I think the position in being able to speak about something confidently, it comes from the investment that you make in yourself. Because I know that in building home care, that there's hours and hours and hours of my time that I invested in learning this industry. Hours and hours of my time that was invested willingly, and a lot of it forced into being invested because you're constantly dealing with things that come your way. I can tell you that the years that we spent going through COVID, in those times, those are some of the times that I've learned more in a small amount of time than all the years prior.
Listen, you're touching on a lot of real important things there. I mean, first and foremost, one of the benefits of being able to have a conversation with somebody and be able to look objectively, you're going to give a perspective that the individual, they're too close necessarily to be able to see on their own.
Yes.
And that is why having peers you can have conversations with, industry, not always important. But in terms of, I've gone through something similar in business. I see you may need help in this area, but you're too close to be able to necessarily reflect upon it yourself.
Exactly.
And even if you do, that discomfort, that's why, again, you're an easy conversation. So for you to be able to bring that up. The other is there is absolutely no substitute for experience,
Nothing.
right? When you live through something, especially for an extended period of time, patterns exist. Patterns in business exist. We talk about cycles in the economy, cycles in business. Things certainly come up. I mean, you look back over time, without getting into too much old school economics, there is conversation around the animal spirits that drive individuals. And there's an expression that times change, but human behavior doesn't.
Never does.
So in my world, we're dealing with markets. And all markets are collective expression of human behavior using their wallets. That's really what it is. And you can go through periods over time. I mean, even just more recently, a lot of conversation around the cryptocurrency environment and how, what is it worth? And people were making comparisons. You go back 1600s in Holland, there was something called tulip mania, where people were spending exorbitant amounts of money that they had then literally to buy bulbs of flowers. It's true. You can absolutely research this. So you have cycles of over enthusiasm that lead to these very overextended marketplaces, and then things come crashing down. But again, the key drivers, greed and fear.
Yes.
And as human beings, we have to balance all of that. And it's not, again, just market behavior. It has to do with business in general. That's where fads come and go.
Now you said, can you repeat what you said? That
Sure.
The markets are the expression of
collective expression of human beings, whatever they're focused on. So for example, if you go back 25 years, there was so much enthusiasm over the birth of the internet.
Yes.
And you end up with a cycle of behavior, people coming in and just so wildly investing and expressing how they're feeling, all greedy to the point where, kind of like the emperor had no clothes, pulled back. They're not necessarily the value that they thought was there. The revenue wasn't there.
Right.
And during that prior cycle, you had a lot of losers and you had some winners. And some of those winners from that period are some of the market leaders that you have today.
Right.
But
right.
This all changes.
Yeah. But that's, I'm so happy that you touched on that, because this is something, and I hope that my kids and I hope my wife watches this, because this is something I tell them all the time. There's nothing new under the sun. Technology changes.
Sure.
We get older. But human nature stays the same.
Absolutely.
If you go back to the beginning of time to now, human nature will never change. You can't change the nature of a thing.
No, you cannot.
You might think you're altering it, but you get down to the very fiber of it. And when we can, if we ever reach the point where we can change the nature of something, I think we're all in trouble. But
good point.
You can't change the nature. And if you study human nature, and even with anything, I tell people, understanding the fundamentals of anything is important. I don't care if you're an athlete. The athletes who embrace and perfect the fundamentals of any sport are the ones who excel in that sport.
Absolutely.
And if just to get a grasp of those, everybody wants to run to the big shiny thing, right? No, where's the foundation of this? What are the fundamentals of this? Let me get in tune with them, and if I embrace that, if I perfect that, you're going to be all right.
Absolutely. And again, it's the consistency. It's the small gains made daily that add up over time. And whether it's an athlete, whether it's in business, whether it's in a hobby that you're enjoying doing, by just consistently working at anything, it sounds boring, but guess what? That's how you go from where you are to a much higher level gradually and gradually and gradually.
Yes.
A 1% gain daily over the course of many years is exponential.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I think I wish to, I wish the world would understand it, but I don't think there's been a time in history where the world understood it. There's always just that, that small group, and I guess they become outliers, right?
That's where the exceptional
Yeah.
arrive.
Yes. So you could do anything with finance. Why this work? Why does helping families protect and transfer their wealth? Why did you choose that?
So it's so interesting because prior to going in this direction for a career, I had different ideas, and I've always had a gift for listening. It's just been something that's come natural to me. And moving away from the institutional arena and working with successful families, you really spend more time getting to know them and understanding what they're trying to accomplish. Because when it comes to investments, there is a rational reasoning behind why some things are better than others. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that right solution is appropriate for all people. So it's a matter of being able to judge and interpret what someone is not only trying to accomplish, but also what they're comfortable with in terms of risk. Because markets don't move in a straight line.
Right.
I mean, we saw that even so recently, as far back this year in April. And people start to get panicky when things are volatile. And there's always opportunity within volatility. That is absolutely foundational in terms of markets and investing. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all people are comfortable acting upon that, nor should they.
Right. And that was going to be a question I asked. Like, if volatility, isn't there a great opportunity to really multiply during that period of time?
There certainly can be.
But there's also a great time for subtraction in that time.
Absolutely.
So I guess but it seems like, and you can tell me, it seems like you almost have to be, have nerves of steel in that time because everything's moving so fast.
So this is where the experience comes in. It becomes less emotional, and it becomes more about recognizing cycles and patterns, and being able to say, all right, well, what's the backdrop? Where are we relative to where we've been? How much has actually changed at this moment? And long term, from where we are at this moment, is this risk reward? Does this make sense?
Okay.
But again, going back to the fear and greed, when things are moving higher, most investors are more happy to pay higher prices to get into something rather than when they see things selling off very hard and at a deep discount. Because the thought is, well, if they're high, they'll probably just continue to go higher, which often can be the case.
Right.
But at the same point in time, if things are on sale at the store, people run in and go buy things.
Absolutely.
However, when the markets are on sale, not everybody has the same level of comfort.
That's true. Yeah. That is, yeah. So Chris, what is it about this specific mission that you're on that gets you out of bed every morning?
So it's multifold, right? The relationships that I have with my clients are fantastic. And I can only thank, the things that I cannot control that have brought so many good people into my world. And I have long relationships with some wonderful people where the conversations we have, they're sacred. And it goes far beyond the dollars and the cents and the markets and the stocks and the things that we invest in. It really goes to, what are we trying to accomplish? Where are we trying to go in life? What do we want to be able to provide not only for our families, but some people are inclined to be able to do more from a charitable standpoint.
Right.
So the conversations that I have, and I say it with a smile and with total seriousness, in my world, I'm often dealing with people's life savings. So the role that I play is very sacred. And I'm very fortunate and very comfortable and very happy to play that role. So when you are engaged with people on such a responsible level, they tend to share a lot of things.
Yes.
So back to the world I came from, where in the institutional arena, you're only as good as your last trade. In the private client arena, it's really a function of taking care of these families and knowing how sacred the trust that they're instilling within you. You really want to do the right things. I mean, I'm so fortunate. I don't have every client of mine, the phone rings, I am happy to answer the phone.
That's a love for what you do.
Absolutely.
That's a love for what you do.
But also the environment, working in the markets, you don't have a tremendous amount of control. There's a rationale, there are hypotheses, there are themes that present themselves, but it's that challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to say, with all the different choices you have in terms of how you're going to position the investments, when you get it right, there's a tremendous satisfaction. Also knowing that you're able to mitigate risk, there's satisfaction around that as well. There's no guarantees in any of this. So when you're able to get it right, it's incredibly rewarding.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I would say that. Is there a client story without names that stays with you or that reminds you of why this matters?
Absolutely. So I'm going to, and again, no names, but dear clients of mine, these are two brothers, and they were involved in a family business. And the family business, they were the third generation of this family. And there was nowhere else for this business to go. And at this stage, there were two pairs of two brothers. So two of the brothers, mine, the other two brothers were cousins of these gentlemen, and reached a point in life where selling the business is what needed to be done. And for a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to help them articulate to their cousins why this needed to be sold at this moment in time, because not everybody has the same goals. Not everybody is in the same position, even when you can be tied to the business. So being able to help them to be having the conversations with their family that now is the right time, we need to focus on this, and to be able to have that come to fruition, life-changing money for everybody involved.
Mm.
But again, this is where we're talking about an investment management business, but this really circled back to family dynamics.
Yes.
So it runs a very wide breadth of situations that we come across.
Yes.
But couldn't be happier for the outcome for everybody involved.
So now in your business, you deal a lot with family wealth, right? Family.
That's right.
So there's a term that gets thrown around.
All right.
And the term is generational wealth.
Sure.
And what Bridget and I talk about is not so much generational wealth, because there's there's a saying that it doesn't last past the second generation in most instances. But we coined a term, the more eternal wealth.
All right.
Because to us, that type of wealth encompasses more than just money. It brings in legacy. It's about having that spiritual wealth as well, being in connection with, a higher power, and eternal wealth, because we believe that there's more to us than just being in the physical realm, that when we leave the physical realm, that, we have to go and be accountable for what we do in this life. That's our belief. So we want to build eternal wealth, right? So where we have something in the bank with God, but also have something in the bank here to be able to leave our families, our loved ones, and be able to leave them a legacy that they can build upon. So that's why we took it away from the generational term. The minute I found, I read that statistic, I said, I don't want to be that statistic. I want to build something that's going to, wealth and a legacy that's going to live far beyond me. how does that look? How does that work?
So how do you make that happen?
How do you make it happen?
So it has, the base of it is understanding and having respect. Because if we think about abundance, and you're touching on all the right aspects, right? You can be penniless and financially impoverished, but abundance in health.
Right.
You can have all the money in the world and be lonely and be impoverished in love. So there are a variety of different ways that you can look at your life. Now, ideally, you want to be well-rounded in abundance. You want to have a loving family in whatever flavor that means to you. You want to have a healthy, mobile body and be able to live freely. And simultaneously, you want to have the financial freedom, the abundance to be able to act on your wishes and not be constrained. So the well-rounded aspect is the goal I have for everyone. But it all has to do with the priorities and how we spend our time and how we treat that with what we have. And in terms of having wealth and being able for that to transfer to the next generation and the generation beyond that, it gets lost often because of lack of education to the younger generations and or lack of appreciation for what they have in front of them, right? That which we are given, we don't necessarily always respect.
That is so true. That is so true.
So when you earn something, you tend to hold it much more sacred. I mean, I'll give you an example, right? Growing up, I said, I come from, never was without, but growing up, there were friends of mine who, they turned 16, they were handed keys to a brand new car. Now, when I turned 16, I also had a car, but it was from my savings. And how I treated my car was very different than some of my other friends because I knew what it meant to have to work for something. Now, if you have children and they see you as a successful parent and you're instilling within them that they still have to earn that which may be intended for them, that ends up with a different level of treatment and a different attitude towards that. Now, the challenge is, and statistically, beyond third generation, it almost never occurs. So how do you, the one who created and built something, to be able to pass that down to the next generation, to instill a value and education system that they can now pass on to that third generation and teach that third generation the same tricks in order to be able to pass that on to the fourth generation? Therein lies the challenge.
Now, is there a way, there's not a way to lock part of it up so that they can't touch it?
Well, there absolutely are. I mean, there are a whole host of legal mechanisms and trust work that can be structured, and you can build criteria in order for them to be able to access that. And again, in my travels in my career, I've come across that, right? Grandma and grandpa put together a trust for their grandchildren, and one of the stipulations is they have to have a job that's earning X amount in order to even have access to money that was left behind to them. So there are certainly ways to instill these carrots into the structure. But I think going back to those of us who do create something, to be able to inspire the next succeeding generations to also want to go out and do that, I think that is really the key to this. But as you said, statistically, not common.
Not common. I believe that it can. I believe I'm totally on board with your approach, and I believe that it's good as long as you also have systems in place that are there as a fail-safe. Depending on the amount, of wealth that's left. Also, I mean, but there's you said there are a lot of different systems, a lot of things that can be used. They can be set up with investments that only release under certain circumstances. I think I kind of like that approach. I like the idea of, the criteria. You have to, in order for you to get this, you have to do this. I think those things those are good and can work, but also, yeah, there has to be values instilled.
Absolutely.
There has to be.
And it all boils down to the conversations that you have, right? Think of the conversations you're having around the dinner table. Are the children aware of how you perceive, and not you personally, but how parents perceive what they have created? Not to just be able to give and to be able to spoil, which is always fun, right? It's always nice to be able to do those things. And we, as the ones giving, often feel wonderful being able to provide that.
Yes.
But more than that, being able to help inspire that next generation to want to go out and be able to replicate that.
Absolutely. As somebody who started the journey later in life, what would you recommend? How do you recommend that someone starting later in life actually approaches this?
Honestly, right? And by honestly, it's having a hard look. Back to the comment you made earlier, where you come across a business owner and you recognize they're having a tough time and things that they need to do. Being able to have an open conversation with yourself, not you, but again, individual, have a conversation with themselves to say, do I understand where I am? Do I have a vision, a goal of where I'd like to get to? Do I understand what I need to be able to reach that goal? Right? I'll use, I don't know how relevant this is going to be to the broad audience, but I grew up watching the series of Star Wars.
Me too.
Right?
Love it.
So the goal is for everyone to be that Luke Skywalker who's going on this journey, and to be able to go find that Yoda who can help them to achieve what they need.
Right.
So a lot of it is recognizing you need to go out and find the right advice, but go and ask advice knowing that you have an objective in mind, and that objective can change. None of this is steadfast. All of this is flexible.
Right.
But you have to have a want.
Right. Absolutely. Now, for business owners, and because I've never know that they had people who were just exit advisors, right?
Sure.
That term was new to me until meeting you was the person that said, that this is an actual thing. I know you have people who are there, but you're actual certified.
Absolutely.
Now, how do you know that it's time to trigger the sale for a business?
So that's a great question. And that's not a question I can answer. So when you look at a business owner who has created something, the goal often is the case to be able to monetize that. Now, there tend to be a few scenarios that come into the fold, right? The immediate triggering tends to be a life-changing situation. You're having a disagreement with a business partner. There's a death in the family and you need to monetize this. You may be going through a divorce. And again, all major life-changing. So that would be a sense of immediately triggering. Then you have folks who, they may be on the far other end of the spectrum where they're just exploring. They understand that they have created something. They may or may not know what it's even worth. They may have ideas what they'd like their life to look like post-business owner, and what steps they need to put in place now, not only to get the business to be maximum value, but also to do all of the legal and tax work to be able to, again, we hear big numbers in terms of business being sold, which is exciting.
Yes.
But it's the after-tax money that counts.
Yes.
And there are a lot of nuanced ways that you can reduce what is going to Uncle Sam and how much more is going into you, the business owner's profit. pocket.
Mhm.
So again, the decision of when to sell, how to sell, there's no perfect time. It's really a function of what somebody wants to do. Now, one of the biggest challenges that business owners come across is post-sale reluctance, because you're a business owner, I'm a business owner. We identify quite a bit with not only what we do, but it's who we have become.
Yes.
So when that portion of your life no longer is the focus, you're spending 50, 60, 70 hours any given week on something you're passionate about, and now you remove that. If you haven't given real critical thought about what you want to be doing in that next chapter of your life, you're going to have a lot of free time on your hands.
Yeah.
And that cannot necessarily be free time. I mean, there's only so many, umbrella drinks at the beach or rounds of golf we can play, and you have to come up with real purpose.
True. Now, do you also help them building up to the sale? So when I'm saying I'm going to sell a business, I'm somebody, I've built this business, I want to go now, I'm saying, you know what, I want to look at possibly getting out of this business. So I come to you and I say, hey, Chris, I'm thinking about exiting this business. What does that process look like? How does it start?
So, great question. So, the question that I would first ask is, well, why do you want to sell the business? And the answers are going to vary. And then the next question is going to be, well, how much do you need to walk away with after the sale of the business for your lifestyle to be maintained? Because again, think of how much of business and lifestyle is intertwined. Are you running the cars, the country club, the travel through the business relative to the salary that you're taking? Yeah. Lifestyle business is a real thing. So post-sale, when you no longer have that vehicle to be able to be facilitating so much of life, you need to understand how much you really need to have in order, from investments generating replacement income or drawing down on this nest egg that you've now created. So understanding what you need, you almost have to reverse engineer the decision. So as a business owner, you may have an idea in mind what you think it's going to sell for, but do you understand what the business is worth and what the after-tax money to you is going to look like? What that is going to model out in terms of sustainable income well into the future, as well as ideas of how can I help my family, next generation. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, and it all boils down to conversations and planning. Because if you realize as a business owner, the sale, the after-tax money may not necessarily be what I need to achieve maintaining this lifestyle, you as a business owner have work to do. We've got to increase the value of that business. Right. And I'm not one to step in and advise on the growth strategy of the business, but I have outstanding partners that I can absolutely bring into the fold.
Absolutely. So that process starts with a conversation. You're coming in, now you understand, okay, what do you need? And then looking at the North Star here.
Absolutely.
And reverse engineering it all the way back. Now, I'm pretty sure that there's some interesting deals that you've struck for people exiting business. Give me one that sticks with you.
So I can tell you that from a stick with me standpoint, it's when they're putting in the work to grow the business. I have clients right now who they have a business that we are looking to sell. And they realize that where it is now, COVID had a dramatic impact. They're not back to the drawing board, but where they thought the business would be today is not close to where they would like it to be.
Okay.
So this is now being involved with the long-term planning aspect of this and being able to help guide that process. And rooting and coaching and cheering on the success along the way, knowing that, again, we've got that North Star that we're traveling towards.
Yes. Okay. Now, so I guess if you're a person, and this is something that I teach in my group, understand the North Star. First thing, one of the first assignments they get is you want to define the North Star.
Where do we want to go?
Where do we want to go? What does the end look like? What's your end game? Are you gonna do you want to sell the business? Do you want to hand it down to your family? What's the end game? And be specific in that process. Even think about it as far as if you're selling a dollar amount. What do you want? What do you want to get for it? And then now, okay, we know we need to reverse engineer this plan or build out the structure to get you there. Simple. Just if you're starting, if you want to map a course to California and you want to leave from here, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to have to put in the GPS where you're going. GPS will then identify where you are now, and then it will make a map, a plan, a course for you to get there. And there'll be checkpoints along the way. It's going to tell you to go here, do this, do this, do this, do this. You're going to know where you're going. The only way you can know is where you're starting from and where you're ending up in order to be able to map out.
That's exactly right.
So that's something that we teach from the beginning. So it sounds to me, and I'm not the expert here, you are, so I want you to answer this for me, but if you're going to sell, the most strategic thing you can do is to reach out to you or someone like you as early as possible and say, hey, I've started this business. My goal is to sell this business. This is the amount of money that I want to get for it when I sell it, or this is the type of structure that I want to have. Help me with mapping this out.
So you said the most important thing, starting early. Because there are certain tax codes that exist that take 5 years to season in order to maximize, I should say, minimize capital gain taxes.
This is what I wanted.
Right?
You're giving it to me now. Talk to me.
All right. So there's something called qualified small business stock. And it's industry specific. Not all industries does this apply to. For example, financial services and some professional services do not qualify for this. But again, under some of the more recent changes to the tax code, the amount of money that shareholders who are allocated this qualified small business stock, they could be avoiding paying capital gains taxes on the first $10 to $15 million that they receive. So being able to have a business of a significant value and having multiple shareholders who are now exempt from paying capital gains taxes on these higher threshold amounts, that's very powerful. But that cannot be put together at the 11th hour. This is the sort of thing where you have to really be focused on the end goal early.
Yes. That's why it's important to talk to people who know, to get people involved, get information, arm yourself with as much information as possible. Talk to the professionals because it will keep you from making a lot of mistakes.
Absolutely.
And I was actually just talking to someone last night.
All right.
And I was telling them that, when you get coaching, mentorship, people look at it as, they're spending money. It's not you're spending money. It's an investment. It's an investment in your future. Because I remember starting my business and I remember working hard. I remember having all this energy, having all this ambition, but not having anybody that I could rely on that's already done it. Because one, I didn't have the money to pay for anybody. Everybody had their hand out and they wanted, exorbitant amount of money to help coach. But also, there was the availability wasn't there. So I had all this energy, this ambition. I'm out here and I'm doing all this. I'm putting in all this work. My energy wasn't always spent in the most efficient way.
Efficient way.
But one, you get, I don't know what you want to say, the universe, God, whatever you believe in, smiles on you. It recognizes your energy, your effort, and your efforts get rewarded and when you do it. But I remember, and I know along the way that I made a lot of mistakes.
Absolutely.
I missed a lot of opportunities that if I would have had a Chris Michelsen around that I could have relied on, that I could have said, hey, this is what I'm doing. I need you to guide me. I need you to show me the right way to structure this properly. I would have then not made some of the mistakes that actually took years some are still undoing some.
Absolutely.
But that comes back to the experience, the wisdom, the things that you learn. It's only, lessons that you learn from, making mistakes. There's lessons you can learn from other people's mistakes as well. But those are the things that sharpen you along the way.
To all the points that you just mentioned, you think of any top athlete at any age level, whether we're talking about high school or professional athletes, they have the best coaches around them.
Absolutely.
None of them get there just through trial and error on their own.
Absolutely.
It's impossible. And when we see so many of these top tier, successful entrepreneur business owners, they often have coaches themselves.
Absolutely.
They have a support system around them. And many of these are exclusive to that cohort. And recognizing that this support exists and that there are outstanding people out there to give advice and guide you through their own experience, like you said, save you time. Time is money.
Yes, it is.
Being able to move the needle through the advice that you're getting. You want to grow the business, bringing in the right people who are not entrenched in the business and able to have that objective, outward looking in. That's how you make these monumental leaps.
Yes, it is.
And another thing, and this is in all things we do in business, too often folks are chasing that next shiny object where they could be just continually doing more of what is working. And,
yes.
We go back, the Pareto principle, right? Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto. That's where the expression comes from, the 80-20 rule, where you get 80% of your results from 20% of your efforts. If you, the business owner, focus in on recognizing, identifying what that 20% is that's giving you that 80% result and make that your core focus, that's how you have those exponential jumps. And that new mandatory minimum of this is my new level of business, that will naturally present itself its next 80-20 proportion where you can then level up. So rather than trying to go additively, just doing more and more of the same, focusing on where you're really getting your highest rate of return and making that your next new normal level, that's how you take these massive, massive scaling jumps.
Right. When you talk about the next shiny thing, that was me. That was me. Because I was always, you're trying to understand how to grow a business. You're trying to understand, where's my revenue going to come? What is going to give me that growth? What's going to give me that push that I need in the business? And then there's always things coming at you, every offer, everything. And, I remember there was a time when, you as a young entrepreneur, you're young in your business, you're trying to get that phone to ring. And I'm going out, I'm doing things, trying to get the phone to ring. And then, I got the phone to ring. But every time it was ringing, it was somebody trying to sell me something because I was always looking for the next shiny thing.
All right.
So I was, on the other end of that line, I guess I was becoming somebody's sucker, right? Or somebody's customer. And they said, you know what, I need to make a sale. So I'm always searching for but that wasn't the kind of, those weren't the kind of energy, that wasn't the kind of That's not how I wanted the phone to ring. I wanted the phone to ring with clients. I wanted the phone to ring with opportunities, prospects. But I had to learn. I had to learn what it is that's going to drive business. What do I need to do to drive business? How do I position myself in this industry? Those types of comments, those types of things that you have to learn and you really need to know. And once you get to know them and you continue, like you said, the 80-20 rule, you keep repeating, consistency, it gets boring, right? It gets boring. But that's what drives the needle.
It absolutely does.
It's what drives the needle.
Boring is a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is.
Boring is a beautiful thing. And if you can take your existing clientele and turn them into cheerleaders, advocates who are so happy with what you're doing for them, that is also another way to just attract wonderful more business.
Yes, it is.
But then there's also the need to not only be able to do a service as a business owner yourself, but to be able to institute systems, procedures, being able to pass on easily the way you want the business to be done to other people. And that's how you scale. If you look at the folks who have multiple locations nationwide, right? Think of McDonald's.
Yes.
You can go into a McDonald's in any place in this world and they're going to make your quarter pounder with cheese the same exact way, regardless if you're here in Connecticut or you're somewhere in Europe.
Absolutely.
It's the same formula.
You know what? It's funny that you mentioned that. I've just used that same analogy the other day because we're talking about one of the things I teach is I teach systems. I teach people how to put systems into their business to make their business run more efficiently. And also those same systems translate into the household, into the family. But that's that is the exact analogy I use, that you have to have processes, you have to have procedures, and it has to be consistency. No matter what, no matter who's implementing it, it has to be clear. There has to be the experience for your customer need to be the same. If you build a premium experience for them, they all need to have that same premium experience.
Absolutely.
No, you could take time and tweak the system to make it better. You're going to get data, you're going to get feedback along the way. But if you do an intake call, every call should be the same. Every client should have the same experience. The phone, every time it's answered, should be answered the same way.
Exactly right.
That's what's going to drive you.
Now you've got a scalable business.
Now you have a scalable business. You cannot scale chaos.
You cannot. If every time the phone rings, it's like it's the first time, people will absolutely pick up on that.
Yes, they will.
You have a process. People are comfortable with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is no truer words have been spoken. Now, let's get back to the wealth, right? What's one of the biggest mistakes you see business owners make when it comes to planning for what happens after they step away?
So it goes twofold, right? So I would say back to the lack of identity planning, how they want to be spending their time, who they want to be, having purpose in their life. Purpose has a lot of different shapes and sizes, right? Having a goal and being able to make progress towards it each day gives satisfaction, fulfillment, all of these things. So when you walk away, do you want to be mentoring other business owners? Are you now coaching your next generation family in the business that you have helped bring into that? Do you want to, my personal, depending on what my children want to do, bring them into the business and or sell the business in the future and explore business that they would want to do. I also have thought about going into higher education, going and helping college students understand what they need to be focusing on from a business standpoint. So having a plan for post-sale is tremendously important. Not doing adequate planning around the income that they're going to need to sustain the lifestyle when the business is sold and they have to scale back their lifestyle, that is absolutely detrimental. That just hurts the ego tremendously. So making sure that you have modeled out what you need. And I will tell you, in this day and age, with all of the focus on healthcare, medicines, we are living much longer. And you have to account for that, because outliving assets is a real concern. If you say I'm going to live to 85 and you live to be 100, that's 15 years that you need to be able to account for in terms of income.
What you speak about is so true. I actually just spoke to a family that in our home care business, we helped them. And we took care of her father. And we spoke to her. I spoke to her yesterday, and they had to cancel the service because he was running out of money. And so they ended up canceling the service, and now they're trying to, get him on Title 19, and that's a process. And but it's happening so regularly. People who have saved their whole lives, believing that they have, they're set for their retirement. And then some things happen. It could be illness, could be just living longer than expected.
Sure.
And they're running out of money. One of our clients, she was 101, just passed away.
All right.
She had financial concerns, but not, she didn't outlive her money. But it's happening so regularly.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary. Bridget and I actually, we're looking at said, wow, this is a real thing. We have to really knuckle down and get serious about it. And when you look at medicine now, they're making leaps and bounds that you see people living a lot longer. They have a thing called reversing aging. So people are outliving their money. There's a thing called reversing aging where they're making ground and actually helping people to live longer and at a healthier life. Now, maybe that'll turn into, instead of people retiring at, 65, 70 years old, maybe they'll be able to work until they're 80. Who knows? But the idea that people will be living longer, it's not just an idea anymore. This is becoming a reality.
Absolutely.
So how would you help, right? How would you instruct? I'll give you a scenario. Somebody now who's 70, 75, 80, they have a lot of life left, but they see that what they put away is shrinking. How would you help them? Because are you able to help them? If they get to you, I'm assuming they have to get to you soon enough, but if they come to you and they say, hey, Chris, this is my situation, this is what we have, is there a way that we can help to make this last longer or even help grow it?
So the answer is, it's all going to depend on what we're working with. But there are ways to generate income that should leave the principal intact beyond just traditional, we'll call it, bond portfolio. So there are a variety of ways that you can generate income off of assets that you have. But when you have a situation like that, and we all went through this in recent years with inflation, fixed income, the same dollar amount each year as things are costing more for lifestyle, leaves you with a diminished amount of purchasing power. So all of this has to be taken into account. So doing the planning at any stage, if you have somebody who is in their 70s and they are absolutely vibrant, looking like they're going to be living far into the future, they should take a hard look at how they're structured today, because there are conversations around how to treat money in the earning years versus how to treat money in the retirement years. And you need to have a combination of income and still growth potential all along the way. You really do.
Yes.
Because if you're living off just that fixed dollar amount each year, that can absolutely be negatively impactful. Now back to the other question you had asked around what business owners should be focused on and mistakes that they make. Often, business owners are not always educated around options that they have in terms of efficient tax-free savings. So when you have a business and you have a large number of employees and you set up a retirement account, or you decide you're not going to set up a retirement account for the company because they'll say, well, if I have to do it for all of my employees, I don't know if I necessarily want to spend that money. And by not doing it for the entire company, they may be missing out on how much they can do for themselves. So you have to be mindful of what strategies you have available to you, the costs of not doing it versus the cost of doing it,
Right.
and streamlining in a way that it is all as tax efficient as possible. And one other thing is just diversification in terms of strategies. Many of my families, they have investable assets in the capital markets, which is what I focus on. They also have real estate, which generates a different type of income and has a different risk return profile. And there's also ways to utilize life insurance, not only for when we pass on to the next life and we leave benefit to those around us, but using life insurance as an accumulation vehicle that pays tax-free income for the rest of your life. So a lot of people don't even realize that strategies like that do exist. So it's a matter of, again, getting the good advice, having the well-rounded approach, and having multiple levers that you can pull on over the course of your lifetime.
Wow. So, and you're able to assist people with all of those.
All of that. Take a very comprehensive approach to what we do.
So you work with family offices, families with generational wealth, and entire teams. And you have entire teams that manage it, or this is?
So my bread and butter is the investments themselves. So that's what I genuinely enjoy the most, is the investment management. So when clients come into me, they give me discretion over their investments, and we allocate according to what we're trying to accomplish. Now, in terms of my other team members, I have team members who focus strictly on talking about the insurance aspect. I know more than enough to be helpful in the situation, but I have team members who they live and breathe insurance in the same way I live and breathe capital markets investing.
Yes.
When it comes to real estate and structuring, I have team members who also they focus exclusively on that. So within Strategic Family Capital, we have specialists that focus on the different aspects for our clients' total financial picture.
Okay. So we talk about wealthily on the show. And wealthily is a word that we created.
And I like that word.
Yes. Because the idea that real wealth includes health, purpose, relationships, not just money. Not just money. How does that land with you? And does that match what you see in families who actually get it right?
Absolutely. Because it goes back to the whole idea of what is abundance. Abundance is much more than just one aspect, whether it's the health, the family, the love of the family, the financial aspect. It all ties together. To live a truly abundant life, you have to be both financially free, healthy, to be able to do all the things that you're enjoying to do, and simultaneously having that family fulfillment where you're able to provide, teach, guide, and instill values for those future generations. So you're coming at it from a very well-rounded, responsible approach. And I think that does lead to true fulfillment in life.
I agree.
I like it.
I love it. Beyond the documents and accounts, how do families pass down their values, their stories, the lessons they've learned the hard way?
So again, it goes back to honest conversations.
Yeah.
Whether it's sitting around the dinner table or, in my family, long car rides provide a great forum for good conversation, right? Those little people are locked in. They're not going anywhere. So sometimes it's a matter of turning down the radio and having a good conversation and making it a teaching moment. I can tell you with my father, some of our best conversations have been in the car over the years.
Wow. And it's I think those conversations in a lot of families, a lot of households,
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways are harder to come by. Because what I see now is because of the cell phone,
Mm-hmm.
they got the earbuds in.
Sure.
They look, especially the youth, right? I love them, and sometimes I look at them and they frustrate me because there's always in them, there always seems like they're, bucking conventional wisdom.
Sure.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with challenging it
Mm-hmm.
in certain respects. But when you try to avoid it and just negate it totally, I think there's a problem there. Because as we talked in the beginning, human nature doesn't change. And who's seen more of human nature than our parents, parents? There's a wealth of information, wisdom that you're just walking away from.
So I think it centers around awareness. Awareness as the older generation, acknowledging what the younger generation could benefit,
Mm-hmm.
and living with intention. And by
Absolutely.
intention, setting boundaries. Growing up, we had a limited amount of time television was allowed to be on.
Yes.
I see the ability to set boundaries with screens, regardless of the size of them,
Right.
and just instilling interactions live, not virtual, but live interactions, and making that just part of the family culture.
Yes.
But it requires discipline for all involved, the parents especially. I mean, we set the example. The next generation, they learn from what they see us do.
Yes, they do.
And it's our responsibility to be setting that right example for them to want to imitate that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So somebody's watching this. They're in their 50s.
All right.
They built something real, right? They got something going on. And they haven't started any of this planning yet. They're probably feeling like they're behind. What would you say to them?
What would I say to them?
Mhm.
Well, have you ever eaten KFC?
Yes.
All right. Colonel Sanders didn't get started, I don't think, until he was in his late 60s. So somebody who's in their 50s, they're early.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a matter of, listen, there's no wrong time to start a race, but you got to start the race.
Exactly.
So start from where you are. You can't turn back the clock, but have that conversation with yourself. What do I want to accomplish? And what do I need to do to accomplish it? But you got to be honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Now, what questions should someone ask when looking for the right advisor? How do they know they found someone who actually cares?
So that's a very subjective question, right? I'm big on how I feel. I trust my gut on a lot of decisions. So when you go and meet someone, do you have the natural chemistry? Because I can tell you candidly, when I meet potential new clients, I tell them, this is a two-way interview, because I'm not a date. I'm a long-term relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure that each time the phone rings, whether I'm calling you or you calling me, we're always happy to pick up the phone.
Yes.
So when you're meeting with someone who is going to be helping you with a very significant part of what you've done with your life, how do you feel with them? How do they make you feel? Do you feel you trust them? Do you feel they have your best interest at heart?
Right.
I can tell you the way that I do my business with my clients, there's no surprises in terms of how they pay and what they pay. Everything is very upfront. And when they invest with me, the more money I make for them, the more money my business makes. So we're always in line. I think having someone who is a true fiduciary is incredibly important. Someone who legally has the obligation to be acting solely in the best interest of their clients is a very important aspect to any financial relationship.
Yes, I agree. I would agree. So if a couple is listening and they're together right now, what's one conversation they should have tonight after they turn this off?
Wow. I'll give you a conversation that I have with dear clients of mine. And it's about, what do we want retirement to look like? And the wife wants to live at the beach. The husband wants to live in the mountains and go hunting. So they came up with a compromise where they do split their time. And they also split their time and spend a little bit of apart. So when I'm having conversations with clients who are working towards that work optional lifestyle, retirement,
Right.
having honest conversations about what they perceive the future to look like and where they want to be living, it can be a very eye-opening conversation for everybody involved.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. What's really holding people back from starting these conversations? Is it fear? Is it overwhelm? Is it not knowing who to trust?
It's all of the above. I mean, the concept of planning for the future and not knowing if you've done enough at the present time can be a very intimidating topic to approach.
Yes, it can.
So I would say the ostrich putting its head in the sand is probably the only option you should wholeheartedly avoid. Everything else is just start a conversation with yourself. Have an introspective moment. Take into account. And again, none of us have the ability to turn back the clock. All we can do is understand where we are today and what decisions we can make between now and the identified goal.
Right. All right. So, Chris, on our show, we always have our guests do what we call the lightning round.
All right.
So in the lightning round, we're going to ask you 5 questions.
All right.
And we want you to give you the first answer that comes to mind. You don't get to think. You just give me the first thing that comes to mind. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So, best piece of money advice you've ever received?
Make sure you're investing. Don't let your money sleep.
Worst money mistake you ever made?
Holding on to a loser too long.
Okay. Something people would be surprised to know about you?
Something people would be surprised to know about me. Living in Connecticut, that my favorite activity is to go surfing.
Really?
Absolutely. See, you're surprised.
Yeah, I'm surprised. What's a book, podcast, or resource you find yourself recommending constantly?
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Get out. That's one of my favorite books. I can't tell you how many times I've
It's
read
an
that.
annual read.
Oh my goodness. We got so much synergy.
Absolutely.
All right, finish this sentence. I wish more people understood that
there's always time for progress.
Love it. So if you could go back and tell the 35-year-old Chris one thing about wealth, family, and what really matters, what would you say?
35-year-old me. So this was when I was 35. This is when my wife and I were getting ready to have children.
Okay.
So I had hard conversations with myself. We were living in New York City at that time. And it was a matter of, where do we want to raise our family? So it goes back to having a vision of what you want life to look like. So, I mean, I would almost give myself a little bit of a pat on the back with how things did work out. But I would say that having the goal for the family being the priority at that moment, being the thing that was the most important thing to focus on.
Great. I love that. And if you could write one sentence to your children or grandchildren about money and legacy, what would that sentence be?
Money does not provide happiness, but it provides freedom and opportunity.
Great. All right. Final question.
Sure.
For someone who's been listening to your story, your heart, your expertise, if they want to connect with you to learn more, where should they go?
Go to strategicfamilycapital.com, and there's a contact me page, and they can submit their information there, and they will get a response within 24 hours.
All right. And all that information will be down below. You'll be able to check it. Now, are there any free resources that you offer that they can come and look at?
Well, I give free consultations. I think that's the best way to do it because, again, in my world, it's a matter of trust and comfort. Happy to have a conversation, let people try me on for size.
All right. That's great. Because I always say, when you know you're great at what you do, you ain't afraid to show it.
No.
Chris, this has been magnificent.
This has been a pleasure, Sean. I appreciate it.
This is great. And we got to have you back. As a matter of fact, I would love it if we could put something together because I fancy this show as being an extension of something.
All right.
So, we do our home care. That's us give it.
Mm-hmm.
We do mentorship and coaching to help people build and grow their business. So on that side, we show you how to make money. We want this side to be able to show them what to do with it.
Absolutely.
This has been a wonderful experience. This has been a great experience. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
You have an open invitation to come back anytime. I want to thank everybody who's been watching and listening. Thank you for listening to this episode of Aging Whealthily Podcast. I am your host, Sean, and I'm signing off for me and Bridget, who couldn't be here tonight, but she will be back on the next episode. Have a great day. Make today one of your best days ever. And if you are in the Middletown area, stop by the Main Street Marketplace building. There are a lot of great restaurants, some great specialty stores in the building. If you're looking for office space, contact Mike Stone at Stone Point Properties. There's some great office spaces in the building. It's a wonderful place to launch and grow your business. Take care. Bye for now.